The quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. This time your silence isn't soft. It isn't a whimper. It isn't you sulking in some dark corner, hoping they'll notice your absence. No, this time your silence is thunder disguised as stillness. It's not a retreat. It's a message they weren't ready for and won't be able to forget. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a battlefield. You've laid down your sword. Everyone expects you to beg, to explain, to shout and plead for peace. But instead, you just stare. No words, no reaction, just a calm, unshakable presence. That's you now. You didn't leave the battlefield because you lost. You left it because you realized the war wasn't worth your soul. Let's be honest. Some of you were taught that silence means surrender, that if you're not yelling, chasing, or proving something, you've given up. That's a lie, a loud one. The kind of lie that keeps people in toxic loops for years, fighting battles just to prove they're still standing. But here's the truth. You don't prove your strength by speaking. You prove it by not needing to. This silence isn't about bitterness. It's not about running away. It's about elevation. You've risen above the noise. You've outgrown the arguments. And when they come looking for the old version of you, the one who sent paragraphs, begged for clarity, and sat up waiting for a text, they won't find them. That version, long gone, buried under every time they ignored your heart and fed their ego. You know what this silence really is? It's like an earthquake before the tsunami. Nothing on the surface, no drama, no warning, just calm. But underneath, pressure's building, truth is shifting, power's rising, and when the wave hits, oh, it'll change everything. My friends, they thought your silence meant you gave up. But what they didn't realize is that this time, it's not you being quiet for them. It's you being quiet for you. You're not in hiding, you're in healing, you're not waiting, you're building, you're not missing them, you're remembering yourself. Let me tell you something fun too. Some people are so confused by your silence, they start talking to themselves. You don't even need to reply. Your absence becomes their new obsession. They'll scroll your profile, look for signs, ask mutuals what's going on, all while pretending you meant nothing. That's the funny part. They thought you needed closure, but they're the ones who can't close the tab. There's a quote by Epictetus. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's silence. Let them misunderstand. Let them think you're done. Let them assume you're broken. Because when you rise again, they won't recognize you. You're not going back to who you were. That person was surviving. The new you. You're thriving. So let's lock this in. Type it in the comments. Silence is my signal. That's your affirmation. That's your fire. Short, sharp, unmistakable. If you feel it in your soul, show it. Press that like button. Subscribe to the channel. This journey isn't over. We're just getting started. Stay with me. Number 1, they thought you were still playing the same game. When a person can't control you, they try to control how others see you. But stay silent. Eventually, the lies will expose themselves. They still think you're predictable, don't they? Like you're going to follow the same script you always did. You go quiet. They wait. You wait. They act. Same story. Same rhythm. They think they've mastered you like a well-worn chessboard, confident they know your every move. They smile to themselves, whispering, I've seen this before. But oh, my friend, not this time. Because this silence, this isn't part of their little mind game. This isn't you pressing pause so you can one day return to the cycle. This isn't a timeout. This is the exit, the last page, the moment the puppet cut the strings and burned the stage. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror, but this time the reflection is not you. It's who you used to be, the version of yourself that tried, pleaded, forgave, explained. You blink, and the reflection fades. That's how far you've come. But they still think they're dealing with that version of you. the one they trained to stay, to beg, to break and rebuild just for their comfort. Let me ask you, why do they still believe you're in their game? Why do they expect you to move the way they expect, feel what they once controlled? It's because they need you to be predictable. Their power depends on your patterns, and when you don't follow that script, it scares them. Because control isn't real unless they can predict your next move. But now they're confused. They're checking your page, rereading old messages, asking mutual friends things like, "Do you think they're okay?" Not because they care, but because your silence is unfamiliar. It's too calm, too focused, too stable. It doesn't fit the pattern they built in their head. And that's when the fear creeps in, because if they can't predict you, they can't control you. If they can't control you, they can't replace you. And if they can't replace you, they finally have to face the truth. They lost something real. You want to know why this silence is hitting different? Because this time, it's not a reaction, it's a decision. It's not fueled by anger or sadness or even heartbreak. It's not emotional anymore. It's spiritual. This is the silence of someone who finally remembered their worth. Someone who realized they were never playing a game. They were trapped in one. There's a quote by Marcus Aurelius that hits home. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. You're not here to play petty. You're not here to match their toxicity. That's old energy. You've upgraded. You're no longer reacting. You're rerouting. Still, let's be honest. That little voice inside will try to speak up. What if they think I don't care? What if they move on? What if they forget me? My friend, those fears are leftovers from your former self. That was the version of you who thought love meant convincing someone to see your value. That was the you who tied self-worth to someone else's ability to recognize it. But now, you've detached from that illusion. Let them think you don't care because you've stopped caring about what they think. Let them move on because your value never depended on their loyalty. Let them forget because you're not here to be remembered by someone who didn't appreciate you when they had you. This is where it gets hard. The silence isn't hard because you miss them. It's hard because you're breaking the habit of chasing the wrong people for the right feelings. It's hard because you're detoxing from dysfunction, because you're choosing to starve the addiction they once fed, attention. But trust me, this is where the shift happens. This is the chapter that rewrites everything. The old version of you would have reached out by now, explained, justified, broken the silence to clear the air. But this version of you, you've learned that silence clears more than words ever could. And they feel it. Oh, they do. They scroll past your name like it doesn't sting. They laugh louder around others, hoping you'll think they've moved on. They post, they perform, they pretend. But every performance is for the audience of one, you. Because silence forces them to face themselves. And most people can't survive that level of truth. Your silence isn't a weak ending. It's a strong beginning. It's not you giving up. It's you leveling up. You've left their game, burned the instructions, and created a new path they can't follow. A path where your peace is protected, your energy is sacred, and your future doesn't include people who once made you feel invisible. You're no longer the old character they got used to playing with. You're the author now. And this chapter, it's titled, I Don't Need to Speak to Be Heard. So say it loud in the comments. Write it like you mean it. I don't play their game. Say it for the version of you that stayed too long. Say it for the one that finally walked. Say it so the world sees what silence really looks like when it comes from power, not pain. Number 2, your silence now holds more power than their words ever did. Never waste your words on people who deserve your silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. They used to drown you in noise, didn't they? Talking circles around the truth, gaslighting your gut instincts, twisting your words until you questioned your own memory. Every conversation felt like a battlefield, and every "I'm sorry" felt like a setup for the next hit. They used words like weapons, and back then, you thought replying was the only way to defend yourself. But now, you've discovered something far more powerful than a comeback. You discovered silence. And not just any silence. This isn't the kind that curls up and cries behind closed doors. This is the kind that stands tall in the storm. A silence that says, I don't need to explain who I am to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. See, folks, here's what they never expected. Your silence isn't the absence of communication. It's the presence of power. And right now, you're louder than you've ever been. Imagine walking into a room where someone used to yell, argue, beg for attention, but now they just stand there, calm, unmoved, untouchable, no reaction, no explanation, no energy wasted. That kind of silence, it's unsettling, it rattles people, because now they're forced to sit in the mess they made without your words to clean it up. That's where you are now. Your silence has become a mirror, and mirrors are brutal, especially to people who have spent their entire lives hiding from themselves. They used to talk over you to stay in control. They used to feed off your emotional responses. That was their oxygen. Your reactions kept their ego alive. But now, you've cut off the supply. No response, no defense, just silence. And that silence is deafening. Because now every lie they told, every game they played, every mask they wore, it all echoes back at them. Let me tell you something true and kind of funny at the same time. They never imagined they'd miss your voice. But now, that silence they once mocked is the loudest thing in their world. They scroll your feed in secret. They replay your old messages. They hover over your name, wanting to reach out, then realizing they wouldn't even know what to say. Because how do you talk to someone who's no longer playing the role you wrote for them? You've become unreadable, unreachable, unbothered. That's what silence does when it's built on self-respect instead of strategy. And now their words, oh, they feel small, meaningless, hollow. They post vague captions. They send half-hearted messages. But your silence, it towers above all of it. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." And now you've stopped speaking and started observing. You're not reacting to the chaos. You're watching it collapse under its own weight, quietly, intelligently, unshakably. Let's be honest, though, it's not always easy. There are days when you want to speak your truth. Days when your fingers hover over the keyboard, tempted to send that "just one more thing" message. That final word, that mic drop. But then you remember they don't deserve the clarity they refuse to earn. They don't get your words anymore. They get your silence. And that's the most devastating truth of all. Because nothing haunts a manipulator more than the person they once controlled, going quiet and never looking back. Your silence says, I no longer need you to understand me. It says, I've reclaimed my peace. It says, your opinion no longer holds power here. So don't break the silence just because it feels uncomfortable. Growth always feels uncomfortable. Don't give them the reaction they're fishing for. Give them emptiness. Let them feel the weight of everything they destroyed when they took your presence for granted. Let your silence remind them what your words once offered. Let it be the proof that you were the value all along. Type it in the comments so they can't forget it. My silence speaks louder now. Let the world see it. Let your past see it. Let your future feel it. Number 3. This silence was earned, not given. You don't just go silent. You're driven there by every ignored truth, every unanswered message, every moment they thought your heart would keep showing up after being shattered. Let's set something straight, my friends. This silence you carry now, It wasn't handed out like a mood swing. It wasn't some emotional tactic you pulled out of thin air. No. This silence was earned, inch by inch, scar by scar, after they treated your patience like a punching bag and your love like a background song they could skip whenever they got bored. You didn't wake up one day and decide to withdraw. They dragged you here, through every moment of indifference, every casual cruelty, every time they acted like your loyalty was annoying instead of rare. People look at you now, quiet, calm, distant, and they whisper things like, "They changed." But they have no idea what it cost you to get here. They didn't see the emotional war zone you had to crawl through just to find this peace. Imagine a castle that used to have open gates. Anyone could walk in. You offered warmth, food, fire, shelter. But time and time again, people came in, broke the windows, mocked the paintings, stole from your pantry, and left laughing. And now, the gates are closed, not locked out of bitterness, closed to protect what's sacred. That's your silence, not cold, not cruel, sacred. But here's the lie. Society tries to sell you. If you loved them, you'd still be talking, still forgiving, still reaching out. No, real love knows when to stop watering dead plants. Real love doesn't keep knocking on doors that slammed shut in its face. You loved them deeply, and that's why you're silent, because continuing would be betrayal, not of them, but of yourself. And still, the doubt creeps in, doesn't it? That little voice in your head asking, what if I'm being too harsh? What if they think I don't care? But let me ask you this, where was that voice when they were taking you for granted? When your texts went unanswered? When your effort was mocked? When your boundaries were disrespected? You didn't go silent out of pettiness. You went silent out of self-preservation, because somewhere deep inside you realized, if I keep talking to people who don't listen, I'll forget how to hear myself. This silence was born from exhaustion, from giving too many chances, from over-explaining your heart to people who treated your vulnerability like a game. And now you've stepped back, not to make a point, but to save your spirit, to return to yourself. And guess what? That's the most powerful thing you could have done. Let them misunderstand it. Let them call it cold or dramatic or overreacting. That's just noise from people who never understood your depth in the first place. They think silence is a tantrum because that's what they would use it for. But your silence, it's a boundary, a sacred pause, a final act of self-respect. There's a quote by Viktor Frankl that hits deep. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And you? You've chosen the space, the silence, the freedom. Let's also be real here. It takes strength not to speak. It takes courage not to defend yourself when you know they're telling others a twisted version of the story. It takes discipline to resist the urge to just check in or just clarify one last thing. But you're not looking for clarity anymore. You're looking for healing. And those are not the same thing, because if they really cared, you wouldn't have had to go silent to find peace. This silence, it's your turning point. It's the moment you walked out of a prison disguised as connection. It's the first step of reclaiming everything you gave away while trying to earn what should have been freely given, respect. So no, you're not being rude. You're being real. You're being done. And there's nothing more powerful than a soul that has outgrown the need to explain itself. Number 4, you've become emotionally inaccessible, and that's their punishment. When access is denied, power shifts. And when power shifts, so does the truth. They never expected this. They thought silence would be temporary, a moment, a mood, a passive phase before you came back, soft again, ready to explain, ready to forgive, ready to carry the emotional weight, like you always did. But you didn't. You went deeper. You detached. And now, you've become emotionally unreachable, And that, my friend, is a punishment they never prepared for. Because this isn't just about ignoring them. This isn't petty. It's not silent treatment. This is energetic disconnection. Your silence is no longer just the absence of words. It's the absence of access. And for someone who used to feed off your empathy, your reactions, your softness, your availability, that absence feels like starvation. They used to know how to trigger you, how to pull you back with guilt, how to tap into your heart like it was theirs to open. But now, they knock, and no one answers. Not because you're bitter, but because you've closed the gate to people who only come around when they're hungry for your peace. Imagine a flame behind glass. You can still see it burning. It's still warm, still beautiful, but you can't touch it anymore. You can't use it to light your cigarette or warm your hands. That's you now, present but inaccessible, alive but protected. They can't get to your core anymore, and it's killing them in slow motion. Here's the truth. They never feared losing you. They feared losing control of you. And now that you're gone, not physically but emotionally, they're panicking. Not because they miss love, but because they miss power. And without access to your heart, your time, your validation, they've lost the illusion of superiority they clung to so tightly. This is what happens when you stop leaking your energy into people who only showed up to take. Your silence used to mean, I'm hurt. Now it means, I'm healed enough to walk away. But let's be honest, it wasn't easy getting here. You had to unlearn the belief that love means overextending. You had to break the pattern of chasing closure. You had to sit in rooms full of ghosts and decide you weren't going to resurrect dead connections anymore. It's lonely at first. You question yourself. Am I being cold? Is this emotional immaturity? Should I say something just one more time? But then you remember the conversations you had where they barely listened, the moments you cried and they yawned, the nights you stayed up writing unsent messages while they slept peacefully knowing they didn't have to try. And suddenly the silence feels like peace. The distance feels like clarity. The disconnection feels like home. The philosopher Seneca once said, "A wise person is indifferent to what is not in their control." And emotional access? That was always within your control. You just forgot that for a while. You forgot that your presence is valuable, that your forgiveness is expensive, that your heart isn't a hotel for temporary visitors who leave the room trashed and the bed unmade. Now that you've remembered, the shift is complete. You're no longer easy to reach. You no longer answer every knock. You don't jump when they breadcrumb you with attention. You don't bend to avoid their discomfort. You've become the version of yourself who values peace over people-pleasing. And in doing so, you've created the one thing they never expected, a boundary they can't cross. Not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself more. Let them spiral. Let them throw indirects. Let them pretend they don't care. The silence, the absence, the emotional distance, it's driving them wild. Because once they had a backstage pass to your soul, now they can't even get a ticket. Write it down, let it echo in the world and inside you. I've become emotionally unavailable to chaos. That's your affirmation. That's your shield. Say it for the version of you that used to leave the door open, even after it was slammed in your face. Because now, you are the door, and you decide who walks through. Number 5. Silence is not peace, it's preparation. You're not resting, you're reloading. They think you've moved on, like this silence is your soft little exit, like you're quietly healing in some peaceful bubble, doing yoga and lighting candles. That's what they tell themselves to feel better about your absence. They're just finding peace, they say. They're probably over it. But let's tell the truth now, your silence isn't peace. It's preparation. It's the sharpening of a blade behind a curtain. It's the calm before a very real, very permanent rise. They think you're gone, like it's over, like this is the end of your story. But what they don't see, what they'll never be ready for, is that this silence is only the beginning. You're not sleeping, you're evolving. You're not detached, you're becoming dangerous to the old version of yourself that once begged to be loved. Imagine a volcano. From the outside, it looks like a peaceful mountain, still, silent, harmless. People build homes on it, take photos, call it beautiful. But under the surface, pressure is rising. The earth is shifting, the temperature is climbing, until one day it erupts, unstoppable, undeniable, unforgiving. That's you. You were the warm, forgiving one, the soft shoulder, the emotional home, the one who always gave one more chance, even when your heart was already bleeding. But now, your silence is that pressure building under the surface. Every moment you don't react is another brick in the empire you're quietly constructing. Every day you don't explain yourself is another step toward becoming someone they'll never get to know again. You're not seeking peace. You are the peace. And peace doesn't mean soft. Peace means powerful, controlled, directed, strategic. That's why they don't feel calm around your silence. They feel threatened. Because deep down they know you're not waiting for them to change. You're preparing to become untouchable. And the scariest part for them, you're not talking about it. You're not posting vague captions. You're not dropping hints or seeking attention. You've gone quiet, but not empty. You're building, brick by invisible brick, boundaries, standards, vision, self-worth, emotional armor, and they don't see it. They won't see it until it's too late. They used to think they had time, that you'd be around when they finally decided to act right, that you'd still be answering the door when they remembered how good you were. But your silence, it isn't a waiting room, it's a workshop. And when you step out again, they won't recognize who you've become. That's the beauty of this phase. You're not fighting anymore. You're not proving anything. You've realized something deeper. They don't need to understand you. They just need to stay out of your way. Because where you're headed, it's not built for people who only showed up to break things. There's a quote from Lao Tzu that says, "Silence is a source of great strength." And that's the truth. Strength isn't loud. It isn't reactive. It isn't constantly proving itself. Strength is quiet, steady, focused. Strength doesn't broadcast the blueprint. It builds in the dark and lets the results speak. That's what you're doing now. You've stopped bleeding in public, stopped explaining yourself to people who were never listening, stopped hoping they'd change. You realized the only person who needed to change was you. And now they don't get to see this version of you being born. They'll only see it when it's fully formed, and by then it won't belong to them anymore. This silence isn't the end of your story, it's the start of your next chapter, one they'll have to buy a ticket to watch from afar because they lost the privilege of being written into it. Say it in the comments. Declare it to yourself and the world. My silence is my preparation. Because it is. It's not softness, it's strategy, it's not retreat, it's rebirth. And when you finally move, you won't need to say a word. Your results will speak the loudest language they've ever heard. Number 6, the old you is dead. This silence is a funeral. Sometimes the most powerful transformation isn't loud, it's the quiet burial of who you used to be. They still speak to you like you're the same, like you're just going through a phase, like eventually you'll come back. You'll laugh at their jokes again, respond to their messages, explain your silence, and pick up where they left you. That's the illusion they cling to, because it protects them from the truth. You're gone. This silence they're witnessing, it's not a timeout, it's a tombstone. They're not waiting for you to come back. They're standing at the grave of the version of you they broke, and they don't even realize it. You know what they don't understand? Silence doesn't just happen. It becomes. It becomes the result of conversations that never led anywhere. Apologies that were just temporary bandages. Promises that were broken so casually they began to rot in your chest. Over time, you stop asking for the same respect you gave without hesitation. Over time, you stop showing up for people who only noticed your absence, never your effort. And eventually, you bury the version of yourself that tolerated all of it. You did, quietly, without fireworks, without revenge, without goodbye speeches. You didn't slam the door, you closed it, slowly, firmly, without anger, just certainty. Imagine a tree that's been standing through storm after storm, bent, scarred, stripped of its leaves, but still rooted. One day, it stops fighting the storm and decides to stop growing in that direction. It doesn't announce it. It simply turns toward the sun and begins again. That's what your silence is, not surrender, redirection, rebirth, release. They're still knocking at a door that no longer exists, still sending energy to a version of you that's already gone. And when they don't get a response, when they feel that nothingness, they think you're being distant, but you're not distant. You're unreachable because the emotional address they're trying to contact has been shut down and the mail is being returned to sender. Let's talk about why that hurts them so much. It's not just your silence, it's what it represents. It represents everything they thought you'd never do. Walk away, stay gone, evolve. Your silence is evidence that they don't have the same hold on you, and that threatens the entire fantasy they built about themselves being irreplaceable. But here's what they'll never admit. They miss the old you, the one who explained your hurt, the one who tried to fix things that weren't yours to fix, the one who gave chance after chance in the name of love, even when it cost your dignity. That version, they relied on it, abused it, and now that it's gone, they're wandering through silence like mourners at a funeral, except they don't know they're the ones holding the shovel. And let's be real, letting that version of you die wasn't easy. You had to grieve them too. The hopeful one, the loyal one, the soft one who kept believing that love could fix everything. But that part of you was bleeding out for people who only brought knives. And so, you did the hard thing. You buried them. In silence, in stillness, in strength. Because healing isn't always about becoming something new. Sometimes it's about letting go of the version of you that kept accepting less. There's a quote by Carl Jung that says, "You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become, and you've chosen to become someone untouchable by old wounds. Someone who no longer repeats lessons you've already learned in blood. Now, when they look at you, if they even get a glimpse, it'll be like staring into the eyes of a stranger. The same face, a different presence, a colder peace, a deeper calm. And they'll say, 'You've changed.' But they won't say it with admiration. They'll say it with fear. Because you were never meant to stay soft for people who made you hard. You were meant to transform. And that silence, that funeral, it's sacred. Because every day you don't go back, the version of you they broke stays buried. And the version that's rising, they'll never get to meet them. Say it out loud, type it, declare it. The old me is gone. Say it for the part of you that cried, that begged, that waited, that forgave too much for too long. Let that version rest, and let the new one rise, silently, powerfully, and permanently. Number 7. This time, silence is the lock they can't pick. You become dangerous the moment they realize they can no longer reach you, not through words, guilt, charm, or chaos. They're still trying, you know. Maybe not with texts, maybe not with calls, but in little ways. Passive posts, curious check-ins, mutual friends bringing up your name, like it's random. It's not. It's all strategy, because what's tormenting them now is not what they lost. It's what they no longer have access to. You. And this silence, it's not a pause button, it's a lock. A solid, cold, unmoving lock they can't twist open no matter how many keys they used to have. Because they used those keys too many times to break in, not to be invited. And now, the door is shut for good. You see, your silence isn't just absence, it's a decision, a boundary, a message written in invisible ink that says, I don't owe you my energy anymore. They can feel it even if they pretend they don't. They can sense it when their name doesn't trigger a single blink in your spirit, when you stop defending yourself, when you stop showing up to clear your name or soften the tension. That's the part they didn't expect, the moment you stopped needing to be understood. It's funny, isn't it? How they once took your presence for granted. How they thought your kindness was endless. How they assumed your heart was a revolving door. But now that it's closed, now that you're silent, their reality is shaking. Not because they suddenly changed, but because they no longer get to experience your light. Let's be clear, they didn't lose you, they wasted you. And that silence, it's the receipt. They're used to chaos. They understand drama. They know how to deal with yelling, crying, confrontation. But silence, that's unfamiliar territory. That's where their power dissolves. Because silence doesn't need an audience. Silence doesn't beg to be heard. Silence is secure. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't explain. It just walks away and takes the atmosphere with it. You're not waiting for them to knock. You're not hoping they miss you. You're not peeking through the blinds to see if they're watching. You've gone inside, locked the doors, drawn the curtains, not out of fear, but peace. You no longer want to be found by people who only loved your openness when it served their ego. And here's what terrifies them the most. They can't figure you out anymore. You used to be predictable. They knew which words made you respond, which silences would make you cave, which memories could hook you back in. But now, you're unreadable, unreachable, untouchable. And when someone who once had access to your soul suddenly realizes they're locked out permanently, they don't just panic, they unravel. There's a quote by Paulo Coelho: never explain yourself. Your friends don't need it, and your enemies won't believe it. And you've learned this the hard way. You've explained enough, justified enough, tried enough. Now your silence does what your words never could. It protects you. That's what this lock is. Not punishment, not a wall, a gate of protection. Not to keep people out of your life, but to guard the version of you who almost didn't survive the last time you left the door wide open. And yes, they'll try to pick that lock with guilt, with apologies, with nostalgia, with fake growth. They'll say they've changed. They'll say they miss you, but all they really miss is the access, the energy, the control, the comfort of knowing you were always one message away from returning. But now they're outside that gate, and you don't even hear them knocking. You're too busy inside your life, healing, rebuilding, choosing peace, and the silence that surrounds you. It's not cold, it's sacred. So let them try, let them wonder, let them spiral into confusion, convinced they'll eventually crack the code. They won't, because this time, your silence is more than just quiet. It's the lock they'll never pick. Say it, own it, type it so it sticks. They no longer have access. This time, you're not holding the door, you're holding your power. Number 8, the flip they never saw coming. They thought they ended your story, but you were just turning the page. You want to know what really breaks them? It's not your anger, not your tears, not even your goodbye. What truly shatters their illusion is that you didn't come back, that after all the chaos, all the waiting, all the emotional control they thought they had, you didn't return to the game. You flipped the board over and walked away without a single word. See, they expected silence to be a phase, a dramatic pause. They told themselves, they just need time. They'll reach out, eventually, because that's what you did before. You always reached out. You always explained, forgave, filled the silence so they wouldn't have to face it. But this time, you vanished, not with a scream, not with a breakdown, but with a shift so quiet, it echoed in every part of them. You didn't disappear, you transformed. And that's the flip they never saw coming. They thought they broke you. They thought you'd be stuck in the memory of what was, obsessing over every word, reliving the pain, staying loyal to a version of them that never truly existed. But instead, you rose, quietly, consistently, completely. And now your silence isn't just distance, it's proof. Proof that you meant every step forward, proof that you're done performing CPR on dead relationships, proof that you've finally chosen you. Let me paint the picture. They're sitting there, scrolling, stalking, pretending they don't care, while low-key hoping for that notification, that sign, that message. But instead of hearing from you, they see something worse. They see nothing at all. And that nothing, it grows louder by the day. Because when you used to post, it was for them. When you used to speak, it was to be heard by them. But now you're doing things for you, moving in silence, healing in peace, and building a life where they're no longer the center of your emotional orbit. That's the flip. It's not revenge. It's not retaliation. It's reclamation. You've reclaimed your energy, your time, your voice. You stopped explaining yourself to people who didn't value understanding. You stopped showing up for people who never really showed up for you. And now, you don't need closure. You don't need an apology. You don't need them to see your worth. Because you finally do. And oh, the irony. It's only now, in your silence, that they're beginning to see it too. Too late. Too far gone. Too out of reach. They're still stuck in the version of you they thought they could return to. But that person doesn't live here anymore. That person retired quietly, without a farewell speech. That's what silence does when it's rooted in power. It doesn't chase. It doesn't announce. It evolves. And that's what you've done. Evolved into someone they'll never get to know again. Someone who no longer reacts. Someone who no longer justifies. Someone whose life no longer revolves around what broke them, but around what rebuilt them. You are the flip they never saw coming. You're the plot twist in their story they thought they were writing. And now, as they sit in confusion, regret, and silence of their own, they'll finally feel what you once begged them to understand, what it feels like to be on the outside, looking in, with no way back. So here's your final truth, the one that seals it all. They lost access to you when they mistook your loyalty for weakness. When they underestimated your silence. When they forgot that still waters don't mean calm. They mean depth. Say it out loud. Say it for you. Say it for who you've become. I am the flip they never saw coming. Type it in the comments. Let it echo. Let them feel it. Let the world see what it looks like when someone rises without revenge, speaks without noise, and wins without playing the game. This isn't just silence. This is evolution. And it's only the beginning.